So I'm going to try and explain the Congo crisis as simply and quickly as I can. The bottom line is Congo is pretty much the richest country in the world. It is absolutely full of all sorts of important strategic resources like rubber, copper, it's full of lithium, it's full of uranium, and of course it's full of cobalt and all the minerals needed to make advanced electronics. Pretty much all of them come from the Congo, and that's why it as a place is needed to fuel capitalism. The only way capitalism can survive and make profit, and the only reason the first world can be so affluent, is by stealing the resources from places like the Congo. And if you look at Congo's entire history, it's never had a chance to breathe because it was given to Belgium to be, their colony in the Berlin Conference when all the European powers divided up Africa and just started stealing everything. Poor Congo gets Belgium, who is the most sadistically violent colonial power, even by colonial power standards. Probably the biggest genocide of all time happens in the late 19th, early 20th century, when about 20 million Congolese people are just straight up murdered and tortured by the Belgian occupation under the guy, he's very famous, King Leopold II. And this is where all like the rubber barons and everything comes from, where basically, it's so rich, the Congo, even the soil is rich, and there's these rubber plantations everywhere. And they set up this system where basically you set an unattainable quota for farmers to create as much rubber as they can, and when they don't reach it, and they're never going to reach it, you basically go and cut off the hands of their kids and stuff to inspire them to work harder. That's the kind of thing you're looking at under Belgium. And as a result, even by colonial standards, Congo is never developed in any way. Like the only, as we've already discussed, the only like infrastructure, like the roads and trains, only go between like mines and plantations and the port. That's it. There's nothing is developed for the Congolese people. And then even all of this just abruptly stops in 1940 because Belgium gets invaded by Germany, and suddenly for about 20 seconds Congo is free. And that's when all the Western vultures swoop in, especially America and Britain, to basically just take control of this country. And then they just start exploiting. They just pick up right where the Belgians left off. And they keep exploiting it for like another 18, 20 years. And eventually a guy called Patrice Lumumba takes control, and he's awesome. He's like a real revolutionary. And he tries to modernize the Congo, build all the infrastructure, and nationalize the resources so that they are owned by Congolese people. That's the final straw, of course, for the CIA, who assassinate him about 20 minutes later. And from that point on, there's just been a succession of very corrupt leaders in charge of Congo. The only real prerequisite to be in charge of Congo is that you let international corporations take whatever they want. And if you don't play ball, you get assassinated. There's been many, many assassinations in Congo's history. And you've got all of these like groups and guerrilla groups everywhere. You've got M23, you've got all the remnants from the Rwanda war there. You've got freedom fighters, you've got everything mixed in together. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so hard to get momentum around trying to stop the Congo genocide, is it is actually genuinely hard to understand. Like Palestine's easy, you've got indigenous Palestinians being repressed and exterminated by European colonizers under Israel. It's a really easy good guy, bad guy narrative. Congo is much harder because Congo is like I like to think it's like a school of fish that's caught between all these predators. You've got like the whales and the dolphins and the sharks and the birds, and everyone's just trying to rip off their bit of it so that they can have the resources to gain their profit and power. You even had places like Uganda and Rwanda have invaded Congo, and you think, hang on, wouldn't the West stop that? Like that was like a whole thing in the second half of the 20th century. War's so bad, you can't do that, blah, blah, blah. Don't worry, that doesn't apply to America, but everyone else shouldn't be attacking anyone. But of course, Uganda and Rwanda are US allies. And US doesn't mind having Congo constantly at war and constantly destabilized and having fighting everywhere, especially if it's ambiguous, because that chaos that is the perfect cover for the heist. If you want to steal all the resources, it's great if everyone's fighting each other because no one's paying attention to what you're doing. And if you want to know, like, who's the big bad guy in Congo, that's kind of the thing. Like, it's really easy with Palestine. You got Netanyahu, he's right there. He's evil. Satan-yahu, like a very easily, clearly identified bad guy who's doing this. You can't really do that in Congo because all the power brokers, all the people causing this genocide are hiding in the shadows. If you want to know who's really causing all the death and horror in Congo, it's CEOs and it's companies. It's places like Tesla and Apple and Nestle and all of these corporations that are just stealing all of Congo's resources and are keeping the country perpetually destabilized as a result. So if you want to talk about how could Congo actually, how do you stop the genocide in the Congo? Well, the bottom line is Congo needs to nationalize its resources. And if Congo was to nationalize all its resources, it would instantly be one of the richest countries in the world. And that's why America and friends will not let that happen. They want to keep exploiting these resources because the American economy and the British economy and all the first world economies are based on exploitation and theft. So if Congo nationalizes its resources and it becomes strong enough to resist colonialism, that's really bad news for the economies of the West. And this is how capitalism works. It's got nothing to do with hard work or innovation. It's all exploitation. And ground zero of that exploitation is Congo. So if you want to know what you can do to help the Congo, other than just kind of getting educated and learn the history of the Congo, and I'll put some links to some really good pages that I follow to try and learn things. The bottom line is we got to start boycotting corporations. And now that we've kind of entered the block-out era of helping Palestine, I don't see any reason why we can't integrate Congo into that as well. Because all these corporations are fueling all of this. Hell, just like how Boeing is fueling the genocide in Palestine, so is places like Nestle and Tesla and Apple are fueling the genocide in Congo. It's all imperialism, it's all capitalism. And understanding that is the first step to actually coming out and creating some change. So I hope that's been a helpful little, at least, overview of the Congo. It's so complex and there's so much more I could talk about, but I want to keep it simple so that we can kind of understand it. Anyway, I hope that helps and I hope that's something to think about. We'll talk about it again soon.